So I am so focused on this guy, thinking, what is your final answer, and how far are you going, and are you really risking that amount of money? The studio was like a madhouse. People were screaming.
I'm fascinated to know what you made of Quiz, which obviously with the final episode.
It's very well made, wasn't it? It was actually very well done, but it is a drama. It's not factual. So most of those conversations were made up because that's what playwrights do. I mean, the bottom line is he's a rotter and a cad and a bounder, and he was guilty. No question in my mind at all that he was guilty. And there were so many things in there that they didn't include. My beef with it is that they did a very strange but very convincing defence QC. That woman, Helen McClory, was very good defence wind-up. But they did not do any prosecution wind-up. Now, in any court of law, the prosecution does the last bit. Yeah. And when the Major and his wife and Tequin were on the actual court case, the prosecution guy did the most brilliant sum up, bringing all the strands in, the coughing and the bleepers and all the stuff. Went to the jury, went guilty, guilty, guilty. They didn't do that last night at all. They just stopped on her, and you're going, oh yeah, I think he might go, poor bloke, poor little man, all that. Maybe he's innocent. I think it was, that bit was a bit of sort of production company skullduggery, basically. I mean, they wanted you to think, blimey, I don't think he was guilty. And this thing now about an appeal, I mean, it's nearly 20 years since it happened. I can't see how they're suddenly going to launch an appeal. Half of the people involved are probably dead.
My thing was, I thought, is it Matthew McFadden who played the Major? He's a great actor. Yeah. And it wasn't until right at the end where they showed some footage of the actual Charles Igham and his wife that it reminded me that, and this is a terrible thing to say, but I'm going to be totally honest, I didn't like the look of him, but I'd spent 3 nights watching... Well,
I don't like the look of you, but I'm not suggesting you're a game show cheat.
No, but what I mean is Matthew McFadden made the character very likeable. And then, but I remember Charles Igham, in my eyes, from my memory of it, wasn't nowhere near as likeable as Matthew's portrayal.
But the other thing, I mean, this thing about this, which they didn't touch on at all, before Millionaire and all that, before he came on, he'd already been arrested and convicted for an insurance scam.
Right.
Something like, £30,000 at a direct line or something. And he was found guilty on that too. And this is not the behaviour of a serving British Army Major. He was definitely, not straight down the line at all. But I mean, I've always said I saw nothing. But the studio that night was like a madhouse. People were screaming and gasping just because he was so... he's a serving British Army Major. He's on, I don't know, 30 grand a year and rented accommodation or whatever. And he's going, oh, yes, £500,000. Oh, come on, let's risk it. Let's play and all this. And you think, why would you do that? And he was so hard to follow. He's going, Berlin. I think it's Berlin. No, it's not. It's Paris. And I'm going, hang on. So this is your final answer, Paris? So I am so focused on this guy thinking, what is your final answer, and how far are you going, and are you really risking that amount of money? The studio was like a madhouse. People were screaming, people were coughing everywhere, because people always cough in studios, So I didn't hear Tequin, but afterwards I had to sit with the fraud squad the next day and go through the tapes, and it's like, oh my God!
Well, yeah, because when you're in, for want of a phrase, the zone doing the show, there could be a man dressed as Ronald McDonald juggling slightly off camera, and you wouldn't see him because you're You're so focused. And actually,
some nights there was a man juggling.
Yeah, well,
with Ronald McDonald. No, it's true. I mean, I was really. It was like an amphitheatre, that studio. I had no earpiece, and I liked that. I like to be down there, once we've got all the setup, once we're on, and I'm focusing on each contestant, and him particularly. It was very strange. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what will happen now. I just think I think a lot of people today were waking up going, oh, that poor Major, I think they'd done him up. I mean, we wouldn't. The police prosecuted him. We didn't. I mean, at the time, I think we were getting audiences of something like 13, 14 million. We sold it to 120 countries around the world, America, Australia, India, etc. So why would we go out on a limb to try and prosecute one of these guys? Of course we thought he was guilty. No question. And nothing has changed my mind, to be honest.
The Chris Moyles Show.